Well, welcome everybody to our first weekly wave of the new school year. We don't have too much for you this week. We've got just a few things that we're going to cover, but other than that, nothing super major. But in the coming weeks, we will have a few things coming out that will be pretty impactful with the way you're going to be entering information and things like that. And I'll cover that here in just a couple slides. So starting off with a few updates, we are currently doing our yearly rollover. We're expecting that to be done July 30th. Right now, you shouldn't really be able to do much as far as student information. The Wave portal should be going in and out of you being able to access it, and we are not receiving any information from your student information systems right now. So if you are able to get into the Wave portal and you do notice that you have maybe some data validation errors, right now you're not going to be able to address those until we're done with our rollover. And then any updates you've made in your system after our rollover, you should be able to be sending those corrections or updates, and those errors should start to fall away for you. Outside of that, we wanted to thank everybody for getting their ASR complete and certified. We were able to get 100% certification pretty much right after our deadline of June 30th. We were super pleased with that, and we wanted to thank everybody for their hard work and everything that they've done to get to that point. And we're super happy that we're not having to, go super past our deadline to take care of everything. So thank you all very, very much. Next, to continue our updates on validations, we wanted to loop everybody in on where we're at right now. We have touched 203 validations so far. We have about, 6 or 7 objects we have to go through. One of those being our biggest one, student personal. But so far we have updated or created 203 validations. 78 of those are new validations, and we do understand that in this coming school year with so many new validations, a lot of districts are going to have more than they're accustomed to, because some of these validations are things we haven't validated before, and they may have just been kind of sitting in your information system incorrectly or in an incorrect fashion, and it's going to be a lot higher quantity of validation errors on your end, so don't be alarmed. We completely understand that that's going to happen, and even with just the updated or revised ones, the 125 already existing validations that we've changed or updated in some way, we know that that will create a little bit of a ripple effect in some of the information that you guys have already entered. And we completely understand that there's going to be a decent increase in validation errors, and we are more than happy to go through and assist any district or any user that's needing assistance. So like I mentioned, we're going to have some documentation coming out very soon on distance learning, virtual learning, and how we're going to be approaching that as far as enrollments, as far as absences, and how your calendars are going to need to be set up. We aren't ready to release it just quite yet. We're having to go through legal and our proper channels to make sure that it is
the board should approve it today, Aaron.
Really? Perfect. Good to know. Board should approve it today. So yeah, it should be very, very soon that we're able to get that out for you all to start to digest before school start, but don't want to go into that until you just have the full document, because it'll be a lot easier that way. Additionally, as far as Title I, Part A, just a reminder that all schools must have a Title I status, and there's only 3 choices for that. You've got not applicable, targeted, and school-wide. And then along with that, all students, they have to have a Title I status. It's either a yes or a no. However, the student shouldn't have a Title I status of yes unless the school is targeted or school-wide. And currently right now, there is a report available in My Data at the district and school level, so you can go through and play around with some of that. I know it's not time for this report just yet, but we wanted to let you guys get ahead of this if you have had issues in the past, or if you just want to double check some of your statuses. And this week, rather than doing a validation of the week, we wanted to do an infograph over one of our processes that usually ends up in a lot of not only confusion, but frustration later down the school year when you have STN issues, or STNs being shared between 2 students or multiple STNs for 1 student. We wanted to go through the STN assignment process just a little bit and flesh it out a little bit more so everybody can have some clarity on how that works. So for the STN process, we made a flow chart to kind of show the direction of the flow of information. So typically how it'll start, you'll have a student that enrolls in your district. And then from there, your staff member will enter the student's information into your local student information system. And at that point, it's kind of hands off for a short period. The information is sent from your local student information system to the Wave. And then from there, we will validate that information. And if there is an error found, that will land the student and the erroring information in the data validation wizard. And that's on the far right over here in blue. So from there, it'll be in the data validation wizard. And then on your local side, we'll expect you to make updates or corrections in your local student information system. And from there, it'll kind of be a loop until you get to where all the information will pass validation. So you'll have to keep going through and making those corrections if the information doesn't pass the validations that we have set up for those few elements. However, if no error is found, we will send that further into the STN assignment process, where we will assess the information that you've given us. And what that looks like is this. So each piece of your student's enrollment has a particular weight associated with it. So on your left, you'll see all the pieces of our STN assignment puzzle and how they affect whether an STN is automatically assigned, whether an STN is automatically matched, or if they land in the STN wizard. So anything on the top there is a mandatory field. So first name, last name, date of birth, and gender. All of those are mandatory and must be provided. At the bottom, we've got our optional fields: middle name, ethnicity, and birth state. And these weights and how they work, it is just a cumulative percentage. So all of the mandatory fields will cover about 83% of the total. And why that matters is here on the next slide. These are the specific percentage cutoffs and what they will do. So if a student is above a 75% match to another student with an STN, that is when they will land in the STN wizard. And you on the district level will have to go in and choose to assign or match to an already existing student that it suggests, or create a new STN for the student if none of those are appropriate.
Okay, hold on. I want to point something out here.
Yep.
So let's say the last name is different. Go back a slide.
Yep.
Let's say the student changed last names. Automatically, you have a 23.26 reduction in 100%. So we're already almost to that 75% marker. If they don't have a middle name, or the ethnicity or race ethnicity doesn't match, or if the birth state doesn't match, you're right there over 75%, and then it's going to automatically create you a new STN. So that last name and that first name and that date of birth, those are heavily weighted. If any of those are different, then in the first name and last name, it doesn't just look at the name and say, is it the exact same? It'll go actually letter by letter by letter and give you partial credit for the letters that are in the same spots. So if you misspell it, it won't knock off the whole 23%. It'll just knock off a portion of that. But if the last name is different, we have that a lot, then you're already on the very edge of getting it automatically recreated a new STN. So if you have a student that gets assigned automatically a brand new STN, where you're thinking, man, that's not right. This kid has existed in our state before. That's probably why. There's probably a last name change, and it got a new STN, and we need to merge those two students, those two STNs together. So just let us know when you see that kind of stuff, and we'll help you merge this stuff together. If a student has been enrolled in Oklahoma ever before previously, then chances are they would definitely have an STN.
Exactly.
So let us know if you see stuff like that. I just wanted to point that out. Thank you, Aaron.
Right, and to go further along with that, like I said, it's cumulative. So if you just provide the mandatory fields, you're already at a point where if one of them is wrong, you will fall below that 75% threshold and a new STN will be assigned, because you're already losing out on 16% of that potential 100. So any element after that, if you don't have, whether it be gender, date of birth, last name, or first name, and you haven't provided those optional elements on the bottom, there's no way that it'll land in the STN wizard or be automatically matched to the appropriate STN. It's going to have an STN automatically generated for them, a new one. So to continue with that, so anything below a 75% match here in the middle, anything below a 75% match to another student with an STN, that student that is below the 75% match is just going to have a new STN assigned. It requires a 100% match to another student with an STN for the student to automatically be assigned that already existing STN and be attached to that. And then that middle ground, if you're above 75% but not quite 100% on the left side, that's when you'll have the student land in the STN wizard. So what the whole process ends up looking like is this. So like I said, you'll have your enrollment at the very beginning of when the student enrolls. You'll enter that information. If an error is found, you're going to have to continue updating or correcting that information until it passes validations. If no error is found, it'll be sent through our STN assignment process where the weights will be considered for each of those elements. And from there, it'll be compared to our cutoffs of the 75% above or below, and if it is at 100% or not. We will have this infograph on our website, so you can just take this portion of the slides and have this printed off or save it, whatever you'd like to do. We will have that available. And
one more thing, go back.
Yep.
Where it says the wave validates the student information, that is two different objects. It's actually three different objects. What it will check to make sure they go all the way through validation is student personal, student school enrollment, and student contact. All three of those have to pass validation before it'll ever even check for an SDN. It has to pass those three objects. It doesn't have to pass discipline incident or calendar info or any of that. I don't care if those pass, but in order for a student to get assigned an SDN, those three have to pass validation. So if you have a validation error for a student that hasn't been assigned an SDN yet in one of those three objects, then that's why you're not getting an SDN assigned to that student, because you're failing validation of one of those three objects.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So if you have any validation errors on a student that hasn't quite gotten their STN yet, or is recently enrolled, you need to get through those as quickly as possible so the student can get an STN, because if they need to be an ed plan or something like that soon after their enrollment, they need to go through the STN assignment process to be able to have that STN, that identifier that we can communicate with people like ed plan and other entities like that. If they don't have that STN, it makes it impossible for us to be able to send that information over for any of those type of situations. So lastly, to follow up, as we've been recently, don't forget that we have a Teams collaboration where you can sign up and basically be within arm's distance of us, digital arm's distance of us, to be able to ask questions or throw out any information to other districts that are already there in our teams. So it's a great tool for being able to reach out to not only the state, our office, and other districts that maybe share a vendor with you or having similar issues, anything like that. The sign up link is on the WAVE homepage, and we will open it up for questions right now. So feel free to unmute yourself and speak up, or reach out in the chat, and we will try our best to answer your questions.